have a I have an additional for our supplies tonight. I have a plate to mix colors. I have a paper towel for any messes. I usually get paint on my fingers. And then I have a cup of water to rinse my brushes. And then you need something to paint on. So I was telling someone earlier, I use canvas boards, but I also use acrylic paper. So you can buy acrylic paper, oil slash acrylic paper on Amazon, go to any local craft store. It's a really nice thing to have because it's a pad of, 10 to 24 based on what you buy. And you can take these out and you can put them right in a frame when you're done, which is really nice. So I'm using that tonight, but you can use anything you want to paint, all right? Now I'm going to be painting with you every step of the way. So I want to thank you so much for being here. And I want to thank Linda and Mary from the AARP New Hampshire team for welcoming me and having me. It's always a pleasure to be here. And most importantly, I want to thank each of you for being here. You're making time for yourself, and this is going to be a really good time. Now, if anyone also has a pencil at home, take a moment to go get a pencil. We are going to do a little bit of sketching. Now, sometimes artists will sketch. So, one, they boost their confidence with shapes. So, someone in the chat was like, Megan, I'm really not good at drawing animals or owls. Don't you worry, friend. I am not either. So, we take a minute to do a little sketching. So, if anyone wants to jump into sketching, you could do that with me. I'm going to keep it simple tonight and we're going to go nice and slow and we're going to sketch out a branch and we're going to put the owl on top of the branch. So you can see here, if I have a halfway mark here with my inspiration, the owl's body is pretty much halfway. That means my branch needs to be below in the bottom half. See that visual? So if this is my middle here, and I'm doing a vertical orientation tonight, I can just start over here and I can kind of create a little bit of a branch. Now I did it fairly uneven, and I'm just gonna do, I'm just outlining the top and the bottom of the branch. Now you can always change the size. I will outline this with a Sharpie so you can see it. It's not the best branch, but we're gonna roll with it here. I'm just gonna outline it with a Sharpie just so everybody can see it. You can make your branch as big or as, narrow as you wish. So my branch is kind of starting low, coming to the middle area, and then coming up. Now I could have dropped my branch down a little lower, but I'll put some like holly berries or something here because my bird is going to be up here on top. So if I wanted to, just to show you, I could make my branch a little lower. So my bird, and I can always, and I have a Sharpie, so obviously I'm going to paint over some of this just to show you. But I'm going to bring my bird down here. So maybe there's two branches, right? You don't have to do this. I'm just showing you that I'm actually going to put my bird on top of this lower branch because the body is going to be right here. Okay. If anyone has a question, please use the chat window. That's the best way to answer. I'll answer any questions in that chat window. But I did two branches because this first one was too high. And I was a Sharpie. I was just being brave. I just did a second branch down below, and I'm gonna put my bird on top of this bottom branch. So once you have that bottom branch in, we are going to draw our bird. Now, I want you to figure out how tall you want your bird to be. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to say I want my bird's head to be about here. So I'm going to put a little mark with a little pencil. Okay? And if you want to start kind of sketching just a little bit of a round bird's head, it might give you, and I just did kind of an upside down U for the bird's head. I'll make it a little darker. There you go. You can see that. So figure out how big you want the bird's head to be, and then you can kind of build the body from that. So you can try that if you want. So it's kind of an upside down U. And this is where your bird's going to be, everybody's birds are going to be different sizes. And then once the bird's head is in, you can kind of continue down on the right, come out a little bit, and then the bird is going to be rounded. And you can say, well, do I want my bird to be bigger than that? And I'm going to say, well, yeah, Megan, I want my bird to be bigger than that. So that's why we use a pencil, right? So in these classes, I always talk through just giving yourself a little bit of grace. Sketching is hard, so just take a few minutes. I'm going to make my bird a little bit bigger. There we go. So I brought his body down a little bit, and the body's going to come down above the branch, and then we're going to put in little legs down here. So I'm going to draw in little legs so you can see it. My little bird legs, okay? So this is the front chest of the owl. It's going to come out a little further than the front of the head, and it's going to be pretty round, and it's going to come straight back. So this is the belly and the chest. If you want to come a little tighter here, you can come a little tighter on the bottom of the belly. You can play with that pencil line. And the reason we're doing this now is because the bird is white. So we're going to hold the white space behind the bird for with white paint. So we don't have to fill it in all with a ton of white. We can just add touch-ups here and there and add a little bit of shading. So I want you to take a few minutes and sketch your bird. So let's see here. I have the front of the bird drawn, and I can come out a little further if I want to here. You're gonna, with art, whenever you sketch, you kind of just tweak your lines as you go. So just take your time in sketching your bird. But let's see here. That's the back of the neck here. And then I'm going to do a little bit of feathers. I need a little bit more neck. So I'm going to do a little bit of feathers coming out. And you can kind of come down. So you can kind of play with your tail feathers. So you can kind of just, you can rough sketch it. And then he's got that fluffy bottom. So maybe we do a little bit of the bottom. Maybe these tail feathers come up a little higher. So just, it's okay if you have lots of lines. And I love showing that. So one of the things that was helpful for me is I did the bottom of the butt here off these two little legs, and that came up pretty high. And then I started to play with the feathers. And then that can then connect to the back of the bird. See that? So then you just erase any of those lines you don't need. Once I'm happy with my bird outline, I will highlight it. I'll outline it in black for you just so you can see it. But play with how full your tail is, how full the feathers are coming off the back. Creating this line here was really helpful for me, kind of connecting to the back of the butt down off the leg. That helped me bring it up high enough. So if anybody wants to play with that, feel free. All right. So we're going to be keeping the bird nice and light. There will be a wing kind of coming in here and a wing coming in here. So if you want to draw a little bit of a wing, you can, kind of layering on top. That's optional. But my tail isn't perfect, but it's good enough. It's going to hold that white space for me, right? But I want to be happy with this face area. Maybe the face needs to be a little bigger. You can make some of those decisions if your head needs to be bigger or not. A little more rounded. I don't know. I'm just going to be playful tonight. I'm going to make it a little bigger. Does he have enough of a head? I think he needs a little bit more of a neck. So that means I could go a little higher with my bird's head to give him a little bit more of a neck. That could be fun. So if your bird has a tiny head, just make his head a little taller. It gives him a little bit more room on the back of his neck. So with art, you always just take your time and you sketch out one thing or another. Your bird's body will change. Just have a little patience. And I always love acknowledging like drawing and sketching can be hard, especially if you don't do it all the time. And we don't always do it in these classes, but for when we do compositions like these birds, it's important for us to consider that because animals can be really hard. So imagine painting this without, knowing exactly what you were going to do. It's kind of scary, isn't it? I'm also kind of drawing a wing on top. So because we're going to add different colors here. And then if it helps you, you can kind of add the rounded bird's face in to see if you get it right or not. So mine looks kind of funny. think I need to make that a little smaller. So it's all about just having a little patience. I'm kind of sketching out the window of the face, making a little wider on top. You can do your bird's wing right here. I kind of have it kind of connected fully. And this can come up a little higher here. So just erase any lines that you may not be using. And it's good to do this before we start painting because it gets the composition down for us. And I have lots of lines. So if you have lots of lines, don't you worry. It's all part of the process. All a part of the process. Okay. And you can see my bird is centered. I'm going to probably put a moon right here. If you want to sketch a circle for a moon, we can hold that white space. Okay. And if it's helpful for you to like get a little nose in here and a little bit of an eye, if that helps you, you can do that. My owl's pretty healthy, you guys. Pretty healthy owl. All right. I might even come up a little tighter here on his feet. We'll see. We'll see here. But like rounded lines for his body, his or her body. Apparently, this is a boy owl. All right. So take your time. My wing is not perfect. It doesn't need to be right now. It's just there in place. It's a pretty long wing. I might make it a little shorter, but we'll see how that goes. But if you want to adjust the length of your wing, I feel like my wing's pretty long. I think I need to bring it in just a little bit. Let's see, maybe I'll bring it in right about here. Okay, I brought my wing in a little bit. Okay. If there's any other branches that you want to bring into your picture that you're going to leave with like a base coat of white, we're just going to be just small branches we're going to paint in. But I encourage you to paint or draw or sketch in any of those other branches. For me down here, I'm going to have some smaller dainty branches, which I'm going to hand paint, but these are going to be my primary branches here. Okay. All right. So I'll give you all a minute to do that. If anyone is done sketching your owl, you're going to start to paint the background gray. All right. And I'm just having fun with my little birds area. So if anyone wants to jump in, painting the background gray, it's a combination of gray and white. If you want to use a light blue instead of like a gray color, that's fine. So, and I'll give you some options. You can even bring blue in. So I'm using a green plate tonight. I'm being festive. I have white paint on my plate. And I'm just going to bring in a tiny touch of black way over here. Just a tiny bit of black. It's going to help me give me a gray tone. And I'm also going to grab a little bit of blue because I love a bluish gray. Like I'm such a bluish gray girl. It's one of my favorite colors. And I'm going to put a little bit of blue on my plate. And this is gonna tint my gray to have a little bit of a blue hue to it. So this part's really easy. You're gonna paint the whole background a gray color, okay? Once your bird is painted or outlined roughly, okay? So I'm gonna use a little blue, a tiny bit of black, and I'm gonna mix a background color, okay? And I want it to be like fairly, it doesn't have to be too dark, but a white snow owl needs to stand out on it, okay? So you can decide what you want your background color to be. If you want it to have like a lot of contrast, and I'm going to make enough of this so I don't run out. It's a very important part of this step. So that's very gray. I'm going to grab a little bit of blue and make it a bluish gray. But make enough of this paint, and there's no rush. It's white, black, and a little bit of blue if you want that cute blue tinge. But make enough of this so you don't run out. If you want it to be a darker background, it'll have a lot of really pretty contrast. So you could have this be very dark and it could look very cool with a snowy owl, right? So there's a lot of possibilities and opportunities here. So I'm just going to make a whole lot of this because I have the whole background to paint. So I'm making a bunch of this color. So take a couple minutes, mix your background color, okay? I added some blue into this. It's very therapeutic too. I always encourage you in these classes to take your time and mix colors that you like. I'm bringing more blue in. And it's really empowering. If you love purple, put a little blue and a little red in here and give it a little bit of a purple hue. That's really fun too. Okay. So there's a little bit of a bluish gray. And you're going to go around your moon. And you're going to go around your bird. And I'm using one of my bigger brushes. And you're going to paint the whole background. And you're going to go around your branch too, okay? I have two branches because I messed up, but that's okay. I embrace my mistakes because I needed my bird to be lower. But I'm going to use the nice flat edge of my brush, go right up against the elements you've already created. Okay, so I like going around all the elements first. Play with how you're holding your brush. Play with spinning the brush in your hand to have a more narrow brush stroke so you can kind of get into some of those smaller areas. And you're just going to fill in the whole background as you see fit. So your bird, mine's pretty dark actually. I like it. So my bird is going to stand right out. And we're going to do white details on top of this background, which are really going to be fun and dainty and quite cute. But we're going to get this background in first, and then we're going to evolve it as we go. Now, if you want to get fancy and like bring in like a little bit of a lighter color of this background and kind of blend it around and create some swooshes, this is where you can get really creative. So I'll get a little crazy for you and I'll show you. You can have fun with this, okay? You don't need this to be just like a boring background, boring solid colors. Watch this. You can bring in some lighter colors. You can do some nice smooth brush strokes. You can give yourself a little bit of movement. It's totally up to you. So have fun with it. But I'm going to fill the whole thing in. I love doing a little bit of different things. You can give it a little bit of a windy look with a little bit of a wiggle of your brush. You can't mess this part up, I promise. We're just painting in the background. There is a little bit of like kind of faux clouds. I'll show you how to do that after. But focus on just doing a nice solid color background first. But if you want to bring in other colors along the way to give it any kind of ombres or any kind of glows, you're welcome to do that. So with always in these classes, I'll encourage you to if you're inspired for you to do you. And that's one of the most amazing things about art. And you learn that over time. And I love like verbally sharing that in these classes because it empowers you to kind of step outside your comfort zone sooner versus someone not telling you to just have fun and not worry about it. Because art is very liberating. It's very liberating. It's kind of like trying a new recipe when you're cooking or you're baking. You're like, oh, I'm really excited about this. And I'm just going to add a little bit more of this to see what happens. It's a very similar experience, you know, that creative piece of cooking or that creative piece of baking, or if anyone's a photographer, it's the same thing, right? So it's with art, it's just about allowing yourself just to explore your ideas, try new brush strokes, this and that. But we're just painting the entire background. So your brush strokes do not need to be perfect. I'm just having fun. But I am painting around my bird. I have two branches. If anybody likes this, you can do this. This was a happy little Bob Ross mistake here. It was a happy little accident, which it doesn't look too bad, does it? And I'm painting in between the branch. So if this inspires you, my little accident, to have more than one branch, you can do that too. How about why not? And if you have any small areas, you can use a smaller brush. I'm just being really careful with this small edge of this brush to get in between, and I'll do some touch-ups with a smaller brush as well. But it's always fun when who knows what happens in these classes. But I love demonstrating mistakes and, unintentionally, because I'm showing up tonight and having fun with you and walking you through the process of just being yourself and enjoying the time.
So Megan, we have somebody that said she came late and she's asking if you would be willing to put the inspiration out there again.
Oh, of course, I'm happy to do that. Thank you. I'm happy to do that. Linda, happy to do that for you. All right, let's put that right in there for you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for telling me. I appreciate that. All right. So we're painting the background. So for Miss Linda who just joined, we're sketching our branch and our bird first and our moon. And then once your bird is sketched, we are going to paint the whole background. That's where we're at right now. So you take your time. This class is recorded. If you need anything. All right. So I'm just painting in the whole background. Nice, smooth, horizontal brush strokes. If you want to have a little movement, you can have a little movement. It's totally up to you. I'm going to go all the way up and off. If you want to do multiple colors in your background, you're welcome to, but I want there to be contrast from this white bird, right? And then another thing that I do in all my classes is I grab a little bit of water, and you can use water to kind of smooth over brush strokes. I had some lighter color, so I'm just doing some smoothing. If you have any weird brush strokes, the water will kind of help smooth one layer to another. There we go. And you want to fill in any of those nooks and crannies on your canvas so there's no little white craters coming through. So take a minute to do that too. I even have that on my paper. Just means you know a little bit more. All right. But I want a nice solid coat of paint for your background. And any way you want to bring your background to life with some, clouded areas, I'll show you how to do that after. If you wanted to bring in a little bit of white right now, you could do that, certainly. You can kind of add in some lighter areas. It's totally up to you. Again, you can experiment. I'm making the bottom a little lighter unintentionally. I'm just having fun. I brought in a little bit of a lighter gray color. So with art, always just be open-minded to what could happen. You don't have to do things one certain way, okay? So if anybody's new to this class, you're probably like, I haven't painted in so long. I'm just gonna follow along and see what happens. But I encourage you to do that. But I also encourage you to just be open-minded to any, happy little mistakes that you make and seeing how your painting will evolve. And it certainly will evolve in this class. All right. So my goal is to kind of paint everywhere, which I think I've done for the most part. I'm going to grab a small brush and paint in between my bird's legs and feet. That's important. So I have a little bit of a gap here. And if I need to change the size of my bird's legs, I can always do that. And I have a line going through my bird's body. I'm going to cover that up because I had two branches and I made a mistake. So this black line I'm going to paint over. It's going to probably take me a few coats of white, but I'm going to paint over that black line. So the bird's on top of this branch, which is no problem. And if you want to use, as you're painting the background, I'm just going to use a little white paint just to kind of crisp up the lines of the edges of the bird. So if any of your blue came into your bird, you can use a little bit of white. We'll do more of this refinement, but everyone's at different steps and stages. So just take your time. I'm just fixing the line that's overlapping my bird. My owl. And he's like medium size, he's not too big, not too small, which is good. Maybe I use a little bit of white paint and I kind of fix my moon so it's a little more even. So any touch-ups you want to do if your blue is done, if your blue, you're still working on your blue, don't worry. But you can kind of use your white paint to kind of fix the edges of your bird, fix your moon. Your moon might get a little bigger. Guess what? That's okay. All right. My moon is not perfect. I love just, you don't have to have a perfectly rounded moon. Mine's close enough. I'm gonna let that dry. If you want to bring in a little bit of kind of fun gray into your moon, you can. I'm gonna keep it fairly light though. If you want to bring in any yellow into your moon, you could bring in a little bit of yellow into your moon. I'm gonna keep my moon fairly light. I might bring in a little bit of yellow. So I might put a little tiny dot of yellow. Oh, as I get paint all over my hands, you guys. Oh my gosh. The world, a little messy tonight. Can bring in a little bit of yellow into my moon, so there's a little bit of a an interior glow. So you could do that if you wanted to. Totally up to you. Art is up, always up for interpretation. So you always just take your time. There we go. All right. Now I have paint on my hand. I'm gonna go rinse it off really quick. So you guys keep working on that background. Fix any spots, any white areas that you want to touch up on your branch or on your owl. Okay. And again, you want that background to be nice and solid in color. My moon needs a little love, so if you want to grab a smaller brush and outline our moon. Tonight's class is fairly easy for an inspiration, which is can be pretty refreshing. We do a lot of different types of artwork in these classes, so I encourage you to check out the calendar and see what's coming up next in the new year. But if you want to take a small brush and, outline that moon on the interior with a nice, smooth, rounded edge, this is where you can slow down and you can start to play with some of these details now that your background's painted in. I had some overlay work with my background coming into my branch. So anywhere you see a little bit of the blue or the gray coming into your branch, just cover that up with a little bit of white. Maybe you need to reshape your branch a little bit. Do a little touch-up work on the edges of your branches. You may have just one branch. I have two because I made a mistake. So I just want you to do a little cleanup work on your branch. It's going to go a little slow. Maybe you need to add a little bit more blue in one spot. Maybe you need to add a little white. I want you to have a nice, clean white branch, a nice, clean white bird, nice, clean outlines. Sometimes if you're new to painting, you can use your pinky to stabilize your hand like this. So I'm just kind of following the edge of my bird. If you have any pencil marks, you can try to erase pencil marks, but I'm just gonna embrace and give your bird a little bit of feathers if you want. You have to go too crazy, but I'm just doing the outlining just to make it nice and clean and clear. Where else? Down here, I have some messy paint edges. So where I have a little bit of a messy blue or gray paint edge on my branch, I could just do a little bit of white cover up to clean that up. So it's a good time to do that now because we're letting the background dry, which is really fun. And then we'll do like a little bit of like cloud layering, a little bit of softness we'll bring in if anyone's interested in doing that. There's also stars. Um, so you can do stars. I'll teach you a non-messy way to bring in stars. But I want that background to dry. Um, all right. So let's see. I'm just looking around doing some nice edging. We want your background to dry as much as possible. If there's any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll keep an eye on that. But this is a nice, relaxing inspiration tonight. All right. So it's not perfect, but it's you can see the objects, right? You can see that there's a bird, which will be an owl, when I paint the face and everything. And then I have a moon in the sky, and then I'm going to do some branches and things. But the next thing we're going to try is a little bit of a water wash to give it some like that cloudy, misty effect. Now, I'm going to, you can use the same big brush if you want, and I'll demonstrate how to do this technique. So I'm going to take a little bit of water and a little bit of white paint. And I'm going to create like a milky consistency. See how this is nice and loose? It kind of looks like there's milk spilt on my plate and it just dripped down. What you can do is with this water and white paint consistency, you can do some kind of starburst. You can do some smudging. So I brought some of that on. And one of the things you can do to smudge this in is you can use the corner of a paper towel like this, and you can just do a little bit of circular smudging. Okay. You can put a little bit more on. I'm just doing little circles, and I can take my paper towel and just do some smudging. So if you want to bring in a little bit of, you know, extra texture to your sky, doesn't have to be all over. You can take a paper towel, wet or dry. Maybe if I dip the corner of it in the water, yeah, it gets a little bit more there. So I'm just kind of creating some kind of softer pockets on top to add a little texture. If you like that, it's water and paint, and it needs to be pretty light. And I'm just doing some circular, this is really pretty, some circular smudging. My paper towel is wet. That worked much better. We're going to do the moon after. We'll do a glow around the moon. But see that those fun circles? It was with water and white wet paint. And I'm just doing a little circular smudging with the corner of a paper towel, and this is wet. So you could just use this if you wanted to as a fun tool to try. You could do some little circles, you could do some bigger circles. If you don't like this, you don't have to, but it's kind of adding another kind of fun layer of texture to your painting. Little circular smudges. Again, art is all about being playful, and it's kind of fun. You can kind of go right over your bird too.
It's amazing the depth that adds.
Isn't it? Just like a little bit. Isn't it fun? Like you wouldn't know. And this is why sometimes, and I talk about this in all my classes, it's allowing yourself to like let your painting evolve. And I love giving these tips and tricks on like how you can do that quite easily sometimes. So yeah, and you can make some a little darker, you can make some a little lighter. Grab another piece of paper towel if it's getting mucky. And you can always paint over something. This is the other nice part, is if something comes out too light, you can always paint over it. I got a little bit of gray on my bird. I'll paint right over that. But it's kind of fun to see what happens. But you can always, if any of these are too light, you can always use that background color and come in on top and do more layering, right? So like I like the way that looks up there. I can do a little circular smudging here, but it's kind of a fun ad to consider. But anywhere you don't like, this background color is like an eraser. So I did a little boo-boo right there. Guess what? I'm going to paint right over that. No problem. You could just do some little circular brush strokes. And around your moon can be a little bit of a glow. So be playful where you feel comfortable to add in a little bit of a secondary texture in the background. I went pretty soft. I wasn't too bold, but it's just something fun to play with. And if you want to think of a new texture, you could think of a different texture, but I'm here just to kind of give you an idea. Because we're gonna put lots of stars on top of this and branches and little cute little leaves and stuff. So this is just kind of a fun detail. So I'm just playing and having fun. So I'm gonna give you all, you know, 5 minutes or so to play with some of this detail. And if you like the brushstroke pattern versus the smudging, you can use a brushstroke instead, okay? So if I go back to a brushstroke, if you like that brushstroke look better, you could do a brushstroke, right? It's totally up to you. This is art. You get to make those choices. And if I don't like it, I can always paint over it. So it's no big deal. There's so little risk in art because you can always paint over something. And I'm just having some fun. I'm just going to add some more of these swirls because I'm just embracing, our Wednesday here, like getting a little crazy together with our friends at AARP New Hampshire.
So someone is asking, they just joined because they got off work late and they want to know
Sure,
the replay. So this is being recorded. And so
sure,
I'll put the
yes,
recording address in the chat again so that you can pull this up and just give us a few days for it to be out there. It's not out there right away.
exactly. Yep. And then you can follow along. So one of the first steps, if you want to jump in, that's fine. If not, no worries, is you're going to sketch a bird with a pencil and you're going to sketch your branch. I did two branches by accident. It's kind of a happy little mistake. Um, and then you're going to paint the background. Okay. So I'm just going to come in. I'm just doing some fun little swirls because I'm just loving life. And then we will move on to some of our additional white detail. And if anyone's new, our classes, are about usually an hour and a half to 2 hours. So all classes are a little different. So I'm just having fun with some of these swirls because why not? I'm going to make some of these a little smaller. You can use a smaller brush if you want. Just have fun. It's very it's liberating to just see what happens. So I'm just going to embrace that and I'm going to let that dry as I'm playing and tweaking it. Okay? So fun.
And then I have also out there the address for the January paint and sip, and I got a peek at that picture. That's pretty special. So I'll
Yeah.
put that in the chat and I'll put that in the chat again later.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, January's is beautiful as well. I have some really good inspirations coming up for the new year. I'm excited to share those with everybody. All right. All right. Yeah, so be sure to check those out. If your branch needs any like extra white or your bird on the edges, it all depends on the quality of the white paint you're using. This white paint isn't the highest quality, so if you have a higher quality white paint, it will cover things up more easily. This one is kind of a lower student grade white paint that I'm just using tonight. So you might have to use your white paint as my background's drying. I'm just covering up little areas here and there where you may, I have like a black Sharpie line, or you may have a pencil line that you want to cover up, or you're covering up some blue, like a blue edge. Just use your white paint and just go over that again. So it's a little friendly reminder. In these classes, we typically bop around from one area to another. That's what artists do. They'll work on one thing and then they'll go and their little brains will switch over and then you go work on something else. So it's all about letting one area dry so you can move back to that area once it's dry. So you can kind of move from one area to another so you can work more productively per se, which is helpful in these classes so we can keep moving along. Maybe my legs need to be a little wider. This poor little owl has the skinniest little legs, and this is a hefty bird here. So I'm going to make the legs a little bit wider. And I am going to kind of color those in a little bit as we go. So I'm good for right now.
So someone is asking, how did you prepare the swirl paint?
I used water and I used water and I used a lighter gray. So a lighter grayish blue color. So if it's watered down, it will move more fluidly off your brush onto the canvas. So to do the swirl, you could do your brush or a wet piece of paper towel to do the swirl like with smudging. So it's absolutely up to you. But a little water will help make that paint a little bit less the opacity. It'll break down the pigment a little bit, and that helps a lot for it to blend in. And some of it's disappeared, to be totally honest. Like down here, it is like disappeared. It's like a magic trick, you guys. Like, I don't know what happened. I just snapped my fingers and all the swirls went away. But I'm so happy with it. I'm gonna do more details. Okay. So, another step that you can consider doing as if your background is still wet, just give it a couple minutes, work on the outlining of your bird. If your background is dry, you can work on some of these additional details. So, for the next steps, we'll just do, and you can take your time with this, but we're going to do some white branches kind of coming in off the bottom, coming in off the top, and then off of the branch itself. And just use a small brush of choice, okay? So a little white paint and even a little bit of water with your white will make it easier and really helpful for you to do your branches. So I have a nice skinny brush here, but use the smallest brush you have and mix it with a little bit of water, just like this. So I'm gonna take a little bit of white, put it on my plate. I'm gonna grab a dollop of water and I'm just gonna mix that. It just softens the white paint a little bit.
So Megan, we have a question about whether you can add water to oil paint.
Probably not. I am not an oil paint expert. I don't think that would work very well. No. It's not. Acrylic is a water-based paint. So that's why you're able to do it more easily. So what we're going to do is we can start with a small brush and white paint on our brush, and you can start in this top corner, and I'm just going to do a little bit of a branch down. Doesn't have to be too long. And then I'm going to add a secondary branch off of this to the left and to the right, to the left and to the right. So if you want to ever make this bigger or smaller, you always can. And then I'm just going to do another little branch here and then another little branch here. So this is where you can decide some of the details that you'd like to do. So first of all, you have these primary branches. You can have some secondary branches coming off if you wanted to. Give it a little bit of a wiggle. But I'm going to put tiny, like little dots of leaves. So I'm just going to do cutesy little leaves, nothing crazy. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. You're going to do cute little dots of leaves, alternating from the left to the right side. I'll bring this a little closer so you can see. So this is a really easy way of doing these branches. Just a little dot, left on the right, left on right. Kind of just adding some like light design. Little, and I'm just using the tip of the brush. There's just little touches. So left, right, left, right. Okay. So just do your primary branches, do a couple secondary, and just do little clusters of 1, 2. Alternate from the top to the bottom side of the branch. Lean back in your chair. You can make these as full or as sparse as you wish. I would say do 5 or 6 on a branch and then lean back in your chair and say, okay, I'm happy with that. Or no, I want to add more. So you're going to figure that out as an artist, what your style is. We're going to add red berries to these after, but we're going to do all the white detail first. See that? Isn't that just so delicate and simple? You all can do that. I know you can. They're just little lines and little dots. You can do that. And they're pretty short, right? So I did them short purposefully. I want to keep some space around my owl. To complement the design, I'm going to do the same thing in this bottom right-hand corner. So you can do 2 or 3 in the top left, and I'm going to do the same thing in the bottom right. So just a little bit of a branch. And some of these can be shorter if you want. Totally up to you. And then if you want to have any of these little secondary branches, you can. So do a primary branch and secondaries. And you just take your time. Some of you, I just want to acknowledge this. I've been teaching art classes for almost 9 years now. And some of you may want to take your time and go really slow. You do that, okay? I'm not here to rush you. We have access to the recording. I always want you to go at your own pace in these classes. And then once I have those little branches on, I'm just going to do little touches, left, right, just little dots, just adding like a little bit of white like leaf detail. And a little bit of water I mixed with this white paint. It makes things a little easier. Simple little details. If you want to do more or less than what I'm doing, that's absolutely fine, okay? If you want to make them even a little longer, you can make them longer, okay? This is our inspiration. We're all going to approach art in different ways. So lean into whatever you're inspired to do. And I'm going to keep it simple. I have in the top left and the top right. Now, in addition, you can add the same branch-like detail to the secondary branch detail to your big branch too. But these don't have to be very long. I want you to try to keep them a little shorter. So as an example, I'm just going to add a little bit of a secondary branch here and a little bit of a secondary branch here and a little one right here. So you have just try adding like little sticks first, and then you can add some. See how they're really short? They're not too long. I'm going to add some leaves. And sometimes if you have a small brush, you can kind of use the tip and then push down to give you little leaves. So you can stick the tip of the brush on the canvas and then push, and it will give you a little leaf shape. I'll show you that up close. We haven't done this before in these classes. So you can kind of stick the tip of the brush down and then push down towards the branch, and it will get a little thicker. Isn't that neat? So you can add some random leaves and branches. See on the underside, I'm just adding a little bit of detail. I'm going to do a little bit of that above and below the branch. So you can be playful on, how much you want to add here and there. But I'm just going to add a little bit of that. You can even do those same little touches that you did on the other ones here too. So it's totally up to you. But we're going to do little red berries as an accent as well. If you want to be more specific, you can draw actual leaves as well. So I'll draw a couple leaves. So an outline of a pointed leaf, you can do that too. So it's kind of a two design approach. So I'll hold these up. I drew a little leaf there. So you see how some of those are drawn, outlined per se. And then I can just do little dashes too. You're welcome to try any of those designs. Maybe down here, I want to add some of the rounded, detailed ones, the outlined leaves as a little touch. Looks great. So these are all choices that you can make. It also adds variety visually, doing some of the outlined leaves as well as the touched leaves that we did. But add a little water to your white. It will help you give you a nice point. Try to bring this a little closer for you. And I'm just going to keep working my way back. I'm just going to add a little bit of a branch, a few accents. And you can add as many or as few as you wish. I'll add some of those those outlined leaves up top so it matches. I love having things match visually. I talk about that a lot in my classes. It's that visual balance of design and style on the top and the bottom, on the left and the right. but all art is done with different levels of intent. So sometimes artists make things imbalanced on perfect, like, intentionally. But sometimes artists like things balanced for certain reasons. So it's something I always like talking about. I talk a lot about balance to the eye and a balance of color. But those are just things for you to think about along the way. I'm just going to add some of these touched leaves here. Just kind of brings the branch to life with a little bit of a touch here and there. And I'm just going to add in a little bit of those touched branches. And we'll add a little bit of stars as well, which would be a really fun thing. So this is kind of a little bit of a time-consuming part, adding all these little branches, but you can really be abstract about it. You don't need to be too meticulous. So I may not spend as much time here on this step, just to give you a heads up, because we have a lot more details to do. But you get the picture here. If you want to do more work, you can. If you're inspired to add any cutesy stars, there's two types of stars I'll teach you how to add. You can add like the 5-point stars, which I'm gonna do because they're so cute. So you can add little 5-point stars if you wish. I'm just using the tip of my brush. There's a cute little star right there. So I'm gonna add a few of these because we never have stars in our artwork, and I love this. This is so cute. Cute little stars. So I'm gonna add a few of these stars. And then I'll do little dots for stars too as a cute little touch. So I'm just going to add a few of these cutesy stars just because we can. It's fun doing cutesy stuff sometimes. So there's a few cutesy stars up there. I'll add just one more little one. And again, I'm just using the tip of the brush. And there's water on my brush, a little water and a little white paint. And it helps me get a nice fine tip. I might add a couple of stars here. We'll add some dotted stars too in just a minute. That will help make it, more nighttime per se. But I'm just adding these bigger ones first because we're going to cluster the little stars around some of these other things. Let's see, I'll put a little star over here. It's a little 5-pointed star. I'll add one over here. So I'm doing some of these 5-pointed stars. Again, a little water on your brush will help you kind of smooth right along. And then we'll do little clusters of dotted stars too, which will be really fun. So I'm not going to go too crazy detail oriented with the branches, but you could spend a long time on the branches, which I'm sure some of you are feeling like you want to do a good job. So just know you can spend as much or as little time on these branches coming off of the big branch as you wish. Okay. Just a little bit of a disclaimer there because you could spend a lot of time doing a lot of detail work on those branches, but I'm going to keep it fairly simple for tonight. Okay. I'm going to finish adding just a couple more of these little stars, and then I'll show you how to add the star clusters. And then we'll switch to our owl. Okay. So for our star clusters, you can add a little water, and you can either use the tip of your brush to do star clusters, or you can use the round end of your brush. And we're going to do little tiny dots in a little cluster. So maybe 8 dots. And you can kind of have them kind of spray out a little bit. And then, so these are really tiny. I'll bring it closer. So I just did some dots right there. If you don't want to do clusters, you could just do kind of white dots all over. I'm just here to give you different ideas. So you can do clusters of dots, or you could just do white starry dots all over. It's totally up to you. I never really do clusters like this, so I'm just going to experiment with this style, but I encourage you to try what you're interested in. You could do 8 to 10 to 12 little dots. And I am just, it kind of looks like snow to me a little bit. So you could do snow-like dots, or you could do, you know, star-like dots. So it's up to you on what this looks like to you. I'm going to do a few dots right along the back of the bird, which is kind of interesting. And I'm going to do some under here, under his butt by the top of this branch. And I'm just using the tip of the brush. I'm not looking for like the most perfect dots. I'm just kind of having fun. Like if there's like little snow squalls like just coming down. I guess it's snow for me. I don't know. This is art, right? This can be, these dots can be anything. And it's such a fun example of that, right? Now it seems more snowy to me. What do you all think? Use the chat. Are you guys adding stars or snow? I think I'm adding snow. I think that's what this is feeling out to be. My snowy owl.
I think it's snow.
It does look like snow. It's more dainty, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's more dainty. I agree.
Well,
Thank you.
plus
I
it's
appreciate
snowing outside right now, so it
I
makes it.
know it's so snowy in New England. I know. Some of our friends don't know what that is very, very much here. We have friends in Hawaii that join us for a lot of these classes, and they definitely don't know what that is. All right, I'm gonna put cute little snowy dots. So again, you can do clusters or you could just do random snow, okay? It's gonna look good either way, friends. So you can pick and choose what styles you want to add. But I'm just doing
Okay.
little clusters. And then I'm gonna do another little star here at the top. So lean back in your chair and figure out what else, what other stars, what other snow clusters you want to add. Because we are gonna jump to the owl um, as our next step. So we're gonna take a few minutes, add some snowy clusters. I'm gonna add a couple more stars and do some snow around it. But I want you to be happy with your moon. If you want to spend a little more time on your moon, work on your moon, work on your snow or your stars. And then we're going to jump to the owl in a few. So just take your time, have fun with these details. Again, a big thanks to our friends at AARP for New Hampshire. We would not be here without their support. So thank you, team, for having us and giving this group of wonderful ladies and gentlemen an opportunity to relax and unwind. I'm sure they certainly appreciate it. All right. We would
You're
not be
very
here
welcome.
tonight without their support. Yeah. All right. So I am adding a little more snowy clusters. I've never really done the snow clusters before. It's kind of fun, different, fun and different. Let's see. I'm going to put some down here. And once the white dries, and I have very soft white tonight. I could do a second layer on all this white that I did, but I'm just embracing it for what it is. You know, we're all having fun. If anybody's very serious and you want to sell your artwork, you know, spend some more time, spend another hour or two. Totally fine. Um, Even if you just want to like make it perfect, you can spend more time after. It's no problem. But I'm here to get you through a majority of these details so you can get off and going here. But how beautiful and adorable this is. I'm so excited about this art. If anybody wants to add cute little red berries, think I have enough snow clusters. Love this so much. All right. I'm gonna grab a little bit of red and just do some berries. You can look at the inspiration. There's berries, you know, maybe 6 berries. You could do a cluster of one, you know, 1 berry or 2 berries, little tiny dots, a small brush of choice. You can even use the round end of your brush. Watch this. The round end of your wooden brush creates a little point. That's a great little berry right there. So I'm just going to do berry, 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 berry. And look at those easy little berries. They just appeared out of nowhere. Isn't that fun? Okay. I can't take this down. It's going to fall. Okay. So if you want to add little berries, I dip the end of my round brush. You don't need a ton, just a few berries. Do a couple, lean back in your chair, add a couple more. It's just a nice little accent. Berry, 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 berry. Oh, that was a big berry. And they can be small too. Totally fine. But it's a nice little accent. So you could do 2 berries, you could do 1 berry. You could do 2 berries and then one further up the branch. Just lean back in your chair. And I just did red out of the container, nothing crazy. So you can do one, one, two, one, two, one. Changing the amounts makes it look more natural. Doing one, one, two, one, two, one. So you can have fun with that.
Boy, that color really pops. It looks so pretty with
Doesn't it?
the background.
It's
Yes.
so fun with the contrasting background. I know. Isn't it crazy how it came together? It's the evolution of our art. So I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to finish up your leaves like for phase one, right? If you want to spend more time, spend more time. But I'm going to and do any little berries, and then we are going to switch to the owl next. And we have plenty of time. We're going to do some shading and texturing on the branch as well, and we'll do some refinement on our moon. So there's no problem here. We're doing great for time. I have a line right over the middle of my owl. I need to paint over that again. So when you make mistakes, like putting Sharpie on top of your owl or layering your owl on top of a Sharpie line, you have to use, this is where like the good old whiteout from the 90s, in the 80s would come in hand because I could just put some of that whiteout on you guys, which I don't have any. I could put some white on that. It would probably take 2 minutes. But when we use white paint, it takes just a minute longer because it's not as thick as our friend whiteout. I know you all know what whiteout is. Isn't that nice? All right. They have fancy whiteout. They had the whiteout out of the bottles, and then they had that fancy strip of whiteout. Either of those would have worked fine. So I used just an extra white, and you can see I finally started to cover up that piece on my body, so that's good. And we will use a little bit of a darker paint to give the bird a little bit more of like a darker brown foot per se. But it's coming along, right? Our inspiration is evolving and it is so cute. I hope you all are loving this. If anyone did something a little different, if you did two birds, if you did three branches, take a minute in the chat, if you don't mind, and tell us something that you did that's a little bit different from the inspiration I'm doing. I would love to hear and see what you guys, and maybe even at the end, we'll do a little show and tell so we can all see each other's inspiration. Sometimes we do that at the end of these classes. But use the details in the chat if you can and tell me if you did anything a little different or if you had any happy little accidents, if you have a little snowman in the background. So some of you are probably in the zone painting and that's fine too. But we'll keep moving on here. So one of the things we're going to do next is we're going to make like a tannish brown color to accent the shaded areas of our bird. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a light brown, and brown is yellow, blue, and red all mixed together. Now I happen to have a little bit of red and a little bit of blue and a little bit of yellow. So I want you to make a brown color. Whenever I mix brown, it either happens quickly or I have to like work for it. Tonight I didn't have to work for it too much. It happened pretty fast. Having a good amount of yellow helps. And I'm going to add a little bit of white to it. So make a brown, a light, bring in a little bit of white after. Make your brown first. And you're going to make a light brown for some of your bird detail. So there's a light brown I'm making. So just to make brown, it is red, blue, and yellow. And we're going to put a little white nearby because the white's going to help us kind of soften it in. So you can see I'm playing with different shades of this.
So
It
one
takes
of our artists said that they made the background night sky blue.
Ooh, I love that. Thank you. Um, Carmelina, beautiful. I would love to see that. That's so pretty. All right. So what you're going to do is once you make a brown, just I added a little bit of white. See this secondary color I have right here? What you're going to do is you're going to use this brown color to kind of start. There's a wing on top. See this wing on top here? You're going to start to kind of create some feathers. Instead of just painting the wing, we're going to add feathers for the wing. See this? So you're gonna do this kind of triangle shaped wing, and I'm gonna fill it in with using a feather technique. So it's just using a small brush, and you're gonna fill it in by adding feathers. So the front of the wing, if you need to make this a little lighter, you can make it a little lighter. If you want to make it a little more yellow, you can make it a little more yellow. Play with your colors. I want you to be happy with the color of your wing. I might add a little more yellow. And you can always add in more white as well. I'm going to add in more white as well. So I don't really like the yellow. So I'm just going to come back to my other color, but you can lighten it as well. If this is too dark, that's fine. So as you're painting this, you can bring in like a little extra white and kind of mix some white in. You don't have to clean your brush. It's really fun. So I'm kind of bringing the white in right on top. And I'm just doing little brush strokes for like feathers. So I brought some brown in, but while the brown is wet, I'm just bringing in a little bit of white to kind of create a textured feather look. Just with the tip of the brush. And I'm filling in the feathers, the texture of the wing with these small brush strokes. And I'm using the white to kind of soften it in. Now, when you get back a little further by these tail feathers, they could be a little longer of a brush stroke. Okay. But the white's really fun. Play with bringing in a little bit of white on top. Just and don't smudge it. Like let it dry and just kind of let it simmer. To try not to smudge all the colors together because then it'll just get mucky. So kind of give it a little texture, let it dry. You can always come back to it. So sometimes it's good to just do a little bit of a touch of a secondary color. Try not to smudge it all in. Leave it so you can see a couple of different colors. It's really fun. See how I'm playing with the white now? See how that it looks like it has different textures and tones to it? Kind of fun. We're going to put just a little bit of this. I have a circle kind of drawn around the face, and I'm going to put a little bit of this brown feather look, kind of outlining the feather area around his face. So I'm outlining the ring a little bit with this brown as well. I'm going to call the ring around his face. It goes all the way to, it's kind of to like to 11 o'clock and then it kind of around his chin. Now use the tip of the brush with a little brown, a little white, and to see how you can blend with a little white. See how you can blend in this secondary color so it doesn't look too funny. Try using a little white to blend it into the rest of the body. So use just the tip of your brush. Try to do a little blending technique. My white is a little tainted too of this brown color, so it's kind of neat. You can bring in some of this secondary color anywhere you want. Okay, so the bird is primarily going to be snowy, but anywhere you want to have some of this additional texture, maybe down here by the body, there's a little more shading down here on the belly area. Maybe we bring in a little bit of gray in some areas. We're going to bring in a little bit of a darker black gray to go around the head. Let's see here. So we're going to use a little bit of a darker color to kind of outline the face. So you can outline the face a little bit if you want to add any little bits of darker color on the edge of the wing here. This is where you can be really playful, okay? So just be open-minded on how and where you bring in colors. You can play with your bird's eye. These eyes are pretty round. If you don't like your eye, guess what? You can paint right over it. I'm going to probably be doing some of that. Fixing my eyeball. I always do that in these classes. And then the little nose is right near the eye. The nose is pretty high for these birds. It's a terrible nose. So these noses, they're kind of pointed downwards. Mine's straight out. See, I haven't done an owl in a while. You guys can't tell, huh? So just play with some of these details. Play with the bird's eye. Play with my eye is it's kind of like the eye shape is kind of interesting for these owls. It's kind of like a sideways teardrop almost. There. My nose is huge. I have like the biggest beak on this bird. Oh my gosh. So this is where our birds are going to come to life. They're going to be like, they're going to start squawking at us and they're going to start being judgy, right? But have fun painting in these snow owls. You can, if you want to give your birds any extra fur, you can do that. But we're going to play with the bird's texture, okay? Play with the amount of white that you have on your bird. You can play with how you blend in the brown. You can bring a little bit of those soft browns to the bottom of the bird, a little bit of contrast on that bottom area. Right by his chest, you can add in a little bit of the grays on his underbelly. This is the bottom of the bird, so it's a little sh more shaded down here, right? Where his feet are, it's a little more shaded because there's less sun up there, right? So you can see I added a little shading down here on the underside, but you can play with these details. But my bird is primarily white. I'll bring it closer for you. My nose is something special, you guys. Very special. My eye is not perfect. I'm embracing the imperfections of birds. Birds can be hard, so just do your best. I'm going to get a little more black. The eye is sort of rounded too, so just take your time. If you paint something on the eye you don't like or whatever, just let it dry and come back to it. But use a little gray or white to kind of help round the eye. It's totally up to you. The eye for me needs to be a little more rounded. And I'm going to use black. So let's see if I can just round it. Oh, now it's going to turn into an angry bird. No, no, no. We want to keep him friendly. Oh, that's better. I rounded the back side of the eye and it's more teardrop shape on the right. And that looks a heck of a lot better, friends. And then my nose is just so big. I'm going to make it a little. What is going on with this beak? This is where art can be hard. Kind of looks like a candy corn, the beak does. A little bit of a candy corn beak. I went really big, but I'm gonna fix it. Okay. It's becoming an owl, friends. It's becoming an owl. I'm gonna bring the eye a little closer to the beak, which means my eye might get a little bigger. There's not a ton of distance in between the beak and the nose, and you can even use a little bit of a gray to kind of cinch up some of that distance. There's like a little bit of like a line here. So if you need that, you can add that in. But add that darker ring around the out of the head area. And that can be a gray, it can be a black. It's totally up to you. It's always fun to kind of play with your colors. Everybody's birds are different colors, right? Some of you may have had, your bird might be an entirely different color by now. That's fine. But play with using just the tip of your brush, creating a little bit of texture. That will help the bird look snowy. I might reshape this a little bit right here. Let's see. Yeah, you can always reshape areas. Art will always change and evolve. So I love talking through like the process of patience. And God bless my husband. He is not an artist and he struggles with, slowing down to enjoy the process. And it's hard. It's so hard. And I like talking about it because it creates awareness for you just to enjoy the process. It's kind of like enjoying the hike. It's not always about the view at the top. It's about the experience on the way, right? It's about the journey. So just enjoy the evolution of how your artwork is changing and evolving. Maybe you take a little bit of this brown paint and black paint and you give your bird a little bit more defined feet area down here. So you can put little feet down here. I'm going to turn this black into brown, but I'm doing feet down here so you can see where I'm going with this. And there's a little bit of brown kind of coming down from the white feathery legs down into the feet. So you can play with a little bit of a brown transition down to the bottom of the feet. So there's the owl. My feet are really dark. You can lighten those up a little bit. But there's a lot of details you can bring into this, right? If you want to spend more time on the leaves, you can do that. If you want to spend more time on these feathers, I'm just turning these black feet into adding a little bit of brown on top. And I'm gonna grasp there. But you can add like any texture, any other colored texture that you want to add in. You can look at your moon. I might add in a little bit of gray right here. If you want to add in any texture to your branches, a little bit of gray on some of your branch, highlighting some white areas and highlighting some gray areas on your branch. That will add some depth and dimension. So you could add gray on like the underside of your branch to keep it just easy. So the shading is on the underside of the branch and the moonlight is hitting the top side of the branch. So a little bit of gray shading on the white, but on the lower side, you could add in a little bit of shading, just a little bit gray brush strokes. They could be big or small. I'm keeping it fairly simple. And you can see how my bird is just sitting here watching the moon. It's come out so beautifully. If there's any questions, let me know. But I hope you guys all are loving this. I hope so. This is so fun. There is one additional detail I'll mention. If anyone happened to notice it from the inspiration, there are like darker blue leaves and branches that are accent branches. If anybody wants for me to paint those to show you what they look like, I'm happy to include that step in the recording. It's just an accent detail. So as you're doing you and you're finishing up your details, I'll show you this one additional step if you'd like to try it. I'm making like a navy blue color and I'm going to use a small brush. And I'm just going to paint in some secondary branches behind. I'm going to do it behind these here. So I'm just going to do a little bit and then I'm going to do a few of these delicate. Maybe I'll do some of these branches. These
Megan,
little
just
bit.
to remind people, I've put the recording address in the chat so people know where to get the recording in a couple of days.
Thank you so
It,
much.
it won't be pushed to them. They need to go and get it.
Yes, you need to go and get it. Exactly. So I'm just
Yeah.
going to add in another cute little accent here. It's just a branch with some secondaries. It's just a darker branch detail. If anybody likes that, they can try that. And I'll just do a couple of like berries on the sides. So I'll bring this closer just so you can see it. If that's something you wanted to add in as additional detail, I just did additional branches with a navy blue color. And let me see. I'll just add another little one right here. And I'm just going to add in a couple of secondary branches. And I'm going to kind of go behind the white intentionally. And I'll just do another little one here. And I'm going behind the white. This is like a grayish blue color. And I'm just going to do a few small little leaf clusters. And then I can just do a couple of dots. So with branches, there's so many different styles and ways of doing things. And I love talking about that so you don't feel like you have to do things a certain way, right? So I'm just going to do a couple of these cute little open outlined leaves, and then I'm just going to do some of those little dotted leaves too. So you can just see what the little bit of the darker textures look like. I'm not doing a ton of them. I'm just showing you. I don't want it to be too busy, but there's a little touch of this in the inspiration. So I just wanted to show it to you. It's quite subtle. All right. So this is the part of class you can do as much or more as you wish. You really want your bird to be nice and bright in contrast. If you want to add any more berries or touch up your moon, you can certainly do that. But what we'll do is I'm going to remove my spotlight. And if anyone wants to show off their artwork, we would love to see that. I will go ahead and Miss Mary, if we can pause the recording, that would be fine.
Okay.